Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar. My name's Meg and I work at St Mary's University in Twickenham. I'm a student recruitment officer, so I speak to students like yourself about higher education. So hopefully today you'll get some ideas about university in general, but also about St Mary's. I also studied at St Mary's. I was a history student for my undergraduate, and I then stayed on to do a postgraduate in public history too. So let's get started. So today's webinar is going to take the following format. I'm going to speak for the next 15 minutes or so about St Mary's. I'm going to tell you about the courses that we have available here, as well as give you some context and overview about who we are and where we are. I will then show you a 10 to 15 minute video tour of St Mary's, which is delivered by one of our sport and exercise science students. So that will give you an overview of kind of what's on our site and what facilities that we have. We will then do a 25-minute Q&A with St Mary's students. So this will be your chance to put in the question box any questions that you might have about studying at St Mary's or studying at university in general, or about any of our courses. So if you do have questions as I'm talking or as you view any of the videos, please do make sure that you put them in the chat or question box, and I'll make sure that they're answered for you. We'll then take a quick 5-minute break because I know that an hour and a half on Zoom can be quite long and quite tiring. But after that, we'll then come back and I'll introduce you to two of our academics. So one will be called Salmons, and she is the Programme Director for Liberal Arts here at St Mary's, and she'll give us an overview of the creative courses that we do. And then I'll introduce you to Bliss, who is our Programme Director for Strength and Conditioning Science, and he will give you an overview of the sport and science related degrees that we have here at St Mary's. So let's get straight into it then. So as I said, ask questions as we go through, keep them coming in. So about St Mary's, we have 5,000 students at St Mary's, and this is made up of our undergraduate, postgraduate and foundation year students. Now, 5,000 students isn't a lot in comparison to other universities. So for context, universities like Manchester have around 40,000 students. For me, when I was studying at St Mary's, I really liked the fact that it was a smaller university. So my lecturers knew me by name, my classes were quite small. So probably about 40 of us in a lecture and then 20 of us in a seminar. So I really got to know all the people on my course and at the university, because you have so many mutual friends and everybody knows everyone, which is really, really nice. You don't ever feel alone or lost at St Mary's. This ties into the fantastic campus experience that we have at St Mary's. So at St Mary's, everything is on site. We're what you would call a campus university rather than a city university where there's different buildings across a city or an area. So at St Mary's, everything's on site, from our gym to our accommodation, to our refectory, to our library, to our lecture theatres. So you don't have to walk far to find something at St Mary's. I've also put here that we have the best of both worlds. So if you don't already know, St Mary's is located in Twickenham in the southwest of London, and we're about 30 minutes by train from London Waterloo. So no matter what your interests or what your hobbies, our location kind of offers something for everyone, because London has so much to offer everyone. In Twickenham, we are surrounded by areas called Richmond, Teddington, Strawberry Hill and Kingston. So we have a lovely leafy suburban area here. If you might know of Bushy Park and Richmond Park. So yeah, you get the leafy vibe of Southwest London, but you also have the city right on your doorstep. I've also put that we're one of the safest boroughs in London. So we're second to Kingston, which, as I just mentioned, is right down the road. So Kingston you'd probably go to if you wanted to go shopping, or if you're going out clubbing, or if you're going out with your friends. Yeah, it's really, really close, and you'll feel really safe at St Mary's if you do decide to come here. We have security on campus 24/7 every single day of the year. So our students who live on site do feel super safe. I've also put here that we were established in 1850 and that we have a great Catholic ethos. So we were initially founded as a Catholic teaching college, but of course we now accept people of no faith and all faith, but we do get to graduate in Westminster Cathedral, which is really, really cool. It's such a gorgeous venue when you do get to graduate and all your family come along. Finally, I've put excellent facilities and sporting excellence. So as well as our libraries and stuff that are on site, we do have world-class sporting facilities at St Mary's. So we have our Olympic standard athletics track, which is named after Mo Farah. So Mo Farah studied at St Mary's So it's really cool sometimes because he comes onto campus to use the track with his family. That's always quite surreal when you're walking by and you see him hanging around. We also invited Andy Murray to come and use our altitude chamber after he had his hip operation. If you're into rugby, you might know of the Springboks, the Wallabies, and the All Blacks. They trained at St Mary's during the World Cup here in Twickenham. We've also hosted athletes from the Commonwealth Games. Fun fact, if St Mary's was their own team in the Rio 2016 Olympics, we'd have come 25th in the world as a country from the medals that our current students and alumni were awarded during those games. So if you're thinking of doing sport or something similar, or just are into sport, St Mary's could be an option for you. So speaking of degrees, at St Mary's, you can do 42 different undergraduate programs are available here. And this includes 19 joint honour pathways. So if you don't know what a joint honours pathway is, that is where you can study 2 subjects at once. So for example, you might want to study half of an English course and half of a history course because they would go really well together. So we offer 19 different variations of that. We also have 58 postgraduate programs. So postgraduate programs are the thing that you would do following an undergraduate degree. So if you want to further your education, you can do a postgraduate degree as well. We also offer 6 foundation degree programs, which are shorter than undergraduate degrees. So if you're not planning to do 3 years, but want to do a specialised short course, you might be able to do that at St Mary's as well. We also offer what is called a foundation year pathway before you do an undergraduate degree. And you can do that with all the degrees at St Mary's. So essentially, if you miss out on a couple of marks or grades during clearing, or you just don't feel ready yet to go straight into university, that's a really good option to kind of get to know the basics of research and learning at university and then progress onto an undergraduate degree. So the first faculty that you can study in at St Mary's is Sport, Allied Health and Performance Science. And on the screen now, you can see the different degrees that we offer in this area. So firstly, you could study nutrition, or you could study sports and exercise nutrition. So if you're really into sport and exercise, you might want to do nutrition in that area and specialize in athletes nutrition and stuff like that. Or if you want to do nutrition for everybody, then the straight nutrition course might be more for you. We also offer strength and conditioning science, and later on, Alex Bliss, who is the program director for that course, will be talking about that as well. So if you have any questions about that course in particular, he's the perfect person to ask any questions to. We also offer physical sport education and youth development. So if you're thinking of going into PE to be a PE teacher, that's a great degree to do first before you do a postgraduate and get a teaching qualification. We also offer psychology and sports psychology. Again, it's the same to nutrition. You can either do psychology across the board, or you can do sports psychology, which specifically specializes in sport itself and athlete psychology. We also offer sport and exercise science. This one's probably one of the most popular degrees at St Mary's. Sports and exercise science covers so many broad topics that if you're not sure which sports science kind of degree in this faculty that you might want to do, sports science is normally a good option to go for, to look at first and to see which modules might be interesting for you. We also offer physiotherapy and sport rehab. Again, if you want to go into physiotherapy where you might work for the NHS and work with people of all ages and different backgrounds, that might be for you. Whereas if you want to work with just athletes exclusively, maybe sport rehab is something that you'd consider as well. We also do sports coaching. We also do sports coaching as a foundation degree as well. We also have a really cool foundation degree, which is the Chelsea FC Foundation Football Coaching. So if you're really into football and you want to be a football coach, but you want to get straight into the industry and make those networks and connections, this is in partnership with Chelsea FC Club itself. So our students in this degree go to their stadium to get taught and all that stuff, which is really, really cool if you're into football. I'm not a massive football fan, but I know that our students who are on that course love it. And then finally, we have a new degree that's called Sport Performance Analysis and Talent Identification as well, which you can check out on our website. And for all entry requirements, all of those on the website, and I will send you a link to those if you have any questions about entry requirements for these courses. We also have acting and technical theatre. This comes into the same faculty because it's performance science. So if you want to be an actor or you want to work behind the scenes, these might be degrees for you. The most notable alumni to come out of this degree recently actually was Tom Grennan. You might know him as a musician. He's actually #1 on the charts this week on some UK charts. So that's really cool. Our alumni are clearly successful from doing that degree. We also have Business Law and Society, the Institute of. So if you're thinking of doing business management, we do various pathways at St Mary's. So you might want to go into business management and finance, or you might want to do entrepreneurship or international business management. There's so many different pathways here at St Mary's that you can go into if you want to do business. And all our business degrees are accredited by the Chartered Management Institute. So already you have an accreditation that will put you ahead of the sector or other people that you're applying for jobs against, because a lot of the time, those sort of accreditations you do once you're in employment and your employer normally pays for them. So yeah, already you'd have a qualification that not many others might have. We also do sports management. So if you want to work in the sports industry, you can do. That's a really great degree for that. And again, there's different pathways and different specialisms for that route as well. You can do politics and law. Our law is an LLB course, so that's the correct course to do if you want to become a practicing solicitor. You can do criminology and sociology. Again, communication pathways and marketing pathways. They're called pathways because they're joint with other things like design and stuff like that. The next one is liberal arts and theology, and that is the institute that I studied in. So you can do things like history or English literature, creative media, theology, liberal arts, and creative and professional writing. So liberal arts is the most notable degree on here because in liberal arts, you can do a bit of everything. So if you can't decide which kind of creative art or liberal art that you love the most, you can just do liberal arts and do a bit of everything. In the picture here, you can see Strawberry Hill House, which is actually on campus at St Mary's, which is really, really cool because it's super, super pretty. It was actually the house of the first Prime Minister's son, who wrote the first Gothic novel and inspired Gothic novels such as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So if you're into Gothic literature or English literature or history in general, St Mary's is a really cool place to study and to have that on your doorstep as well. And finally, we have our Institute of Education, which has been rated outstanding by Ofsted in both 2011 and 2019. So if you want to be a primary education teacher, you can do an undergraduate in primary education qualified teacher status. So you can go on to teach after this degree. But we have loads of different degrees in this area, especially if you want to become a secondary teacher, you can stay on and do a PGCE with us as well. So yeah, we really have had excellent teachers for our teaching. Here is an aerial view of our campus. As I mentioned earlier, you have the Sir Mo Farah track, which is in the middle of our campus there. Next to it, you can see just behind it here is some of our halls of residence towards the river. As I said before, our accommodation is mainly on site. We do have some accommodation to the left, literally just down the road there, just one house. But again, it's super, super close, literally a 3-minute walk from campus. At the back on the left, you can see Strawberry Hill House, which I just mentioned. Below this sign here is where all of our sports stuff is, which you can't see underneath this, but the tour will show that. But yeah, it's 36 acres, really green, and everything is on site. We then have Teddington Lock Campus, which is a 15-minute walk down the road. This sometimes is used for teaching, but it's also mainly used by clubs at the university. As you can see, there's 15 acres of playing fields. So if you're part of a club, you might play here on a Wednesday afternoon as part of the Bucks Championships, or during varsity. So at St Mary's, we have varsity against Brunel University, and that's a whole day of like various sport competitions against each other. It's super competitive. So yeah, really, really love that. But yeah, this is 15 minutes down the road, and you might have some lessons there if you do a sport degree here at St Mary's as well. When considering what universities to go to, it's always useful to look at the different statistics that they have. So I just pulled together a couple here for you about St Mary's. So we're among the top in London for overall satisfaction, which is incredible. When you're looking at different stats, it's always important to see how happy the students are. And that would be my top tip for you when you're researching what universities you might consider going to. Definitely check how happy are the students that are going there. Another stat is 98% of graduates in employment, vocation, or further study, they're in employment rather, after 15 months after graduating, which is fantastic. At St Mary's, we have an awesome career service who will help you with your CV. They can find you work placement modules if you want to go into the industry whilst you're doing your degree. You don't have to take a full year out. You can do a module. Normally they're in sport, business or teaching, but definitely you can speak to them if you come here about that. And our graduates can use the service way after they've graduated as well, so they're always there to support you. We're also top 3 in England for our sports scene, which I think I kind of have discussed already. And as I said, we've rated outstanding by Ofsted in 2011 and then again in 2019. Finally, what does the St Mary's Students' Union do? Now, you might have heard of student unions already, but they are there to represent students if they have any issues whilst they're studying at university. They're there to support you with any problems that you might have. However, they also run social events, so they put on freshers. At St Mary's, we do a summer ball. They also have all the clubs and societies. The best thing about going to university is if there's not a club or society that already exists, you can create that, which looks great on your CV, and it's also a lot of fun and a great way to make friends. So no matter what your hobbies or interests, there are loads of opportunities to get involved with at university, which is super exciting no matter where you decide to go. I've actually just put together some photos here for you. So on the left here, you have a picture of me and a dog because we had puppy rooms on campus, which was really cool. We also have some rides from a fair that we had on site. And yeah, everyone was dressed up for summer ball, which is really, really nice. Okay, I'm now going to show you a video of a campus tour, which is about 10 minutes long. What I'm going to do is, if you can't hear this, I'm going to put the link into the chat box now. Feel free to mute this video and watch it on your own device. But if not, it's about 11 minutes long. So if my internet's slow or your internet's slow, do bear with us, we'll be right back. I will put that in the group chat now for you. Also, I've put closed captions on. They're obviously auto-generated by YouTube, so they're not exactly perfect, but hopefully it helps you out if you can't hear it properly.
I'm a science student and I'm going to be giving you a campus tour of St Mary's University. Here we have the tennis hall, which is used for sports like tennis, badminton, volleyball, and also five-a-side football. It's also used So here we have some more sports facilities. So this is our main sports St Mary's complex down here. To the right, we're coming up to the Performance Education Centre, also known as the Tech. It's sort of a high-tech gym, which is used for lectures like sports rehab, strength and conditioning, and it's also used for training for students to practice, and also elite athletes train here. So it's a good centre for supporting elite athletes. Here we have lots of the free weights. We also have a big area here, which is often used for practical lectures, so people can have lots of space to have several students in here working on different things. We have all the weight racks along here, so there's lots of space for several students or athletes to be training at one time. Through there we have the dance studio, which is also a cycle studio. It has things like spin classes go on in it, dance classes, and other sort of classes like yoga and things like that throughout the week, which you can get involved with as a student, and also people outside of the university from the public come in and get involved with the courses as well. So here is the main bit of sports St Mary's, where we have the performance hall and the gym. So this is just the main section coming up here. So this is the main reception for sports St Mary's. There's usually a receptionist on here that can help you with anything to do with membership, joining the gym, what times you can use the gym. There's several different membership tiers you can get when at the gym, which is really good. So you can get an off-peak membership and things like that. So here is the performance hall. This is used for things like basketball, badminton, volleyball. It's also used for lots of our sports courses for lectures, such as the strength and conditioning, sports coaching science, sport and exercise science courses. It's a really nice new open space. The building Sports St Mary's was actually opened in 2011, so it's still a super new facility. It's updated regularly with really good high-tech gym equipment. Through here is our gym. It's obviously got a lot of screens up at the moment to make it COVID safe. So we've got lots of the cardio machines through here, and then at the back we have the weight area. But all the equipment's pretty new. It's really like high tech and great for training. Here we have all the changing room and toilet facilities and locker space, so you can leave your bag safely when you come into train. Out here we have a big sports field that's often used for rugby games, especially on a Wednesday afternoon. It can often be used by like the first team when we've got other teams coming to play. So it creates a really good sense of atmosphere around the campus because everyone gets involved because it's really near all our accommodation and things like that. So a lot of people come out to watch. We also have a floodlit area over here, which is also used for sports like rugby, football throughout the year. So it can even be used when it's dark in the evenings. Across here we have our athletics track, which is actually called the Sermo Farrer Athletics Track, as he was a student here as well. He still comes and trains in the area when he's in this country, so he can sometimes be spotted training on the track. We also have a number of other elite athletes that still use St Mary's as a training facility, as it's such a good area for running. During the London 2012 Olympics, we had the Jamaican team, the China team, all training on the track as a preparation for the Olympics. And we still have Australian Olympic athletes come and train here throughout the summer when they're competing in their European summer season. So it's a super well-used facility. We also have children's coaching go on here throughout the week that students can get involved with. They can do coaching courses and be paid to coach young athletes, young kids of sort of primary school age, which is a really nice thing to get involved with, and it happens every week. Here we have our SU bar. It's a bit different at the moment, but it is usually open as a bar. There's space for several table space, so you can go with your friends, have a drink. In normal times, we have event nights on in there, especially in Freshers Week and at the end of the year. So yeah, up ahead we have the cafe. This is just a normal cafe. It's run by it's like coffee by Smoking Bean. Often students use it to meet lecturers, meet friends, maybe go and do some uni work, or just chill out for a drink. It's a nice space for like meeting people, and it's got a really nice atmosphere in it.
We actually have one question that's come through, and the question is, can students use the athletics track whenever they want? Do you know?
I believe that you have to speak to Sports St Mary's if you want to use it, but it's really easy to book on to use it. But yeah, just for a health and safety requirement, you have to just, so someone knows you're on there, you have to check with them first, because sometimes we have external clients coming on and using it. Around here is just the side of the library, and the main entrance to the library is actually around the other side. But along the side, we have lots of, there's small study rooms, so students can go in there. If maybe you've got a group assignment, you can book one out. So you know you've got a quiet space to get on and work as a group without being disturbed. We have the main library is open 8 till 7 every day in the week, but we also have a 24-hour study hub. So if you have an assignment that you need to get done and you want to go and do it overnight, or you need to stay up late, then there's a quiet space where you can stay that's safe, where you can get on with it. So yeah, that's really good because it's open 24/7.
Someone asked where the nearest Nando's is.
The nearest Nando's is, we've got two, so we've got one in Twickenham and one in Teddington. The one in Teddington is probably about a kilometre away, maybe 800 metres away, and the one in Twickenham is probably about less than a mile away, so they're both really near. Coming up here, we have the rec, which is basically our university canteen. If you're living in halls, then you'll be living in catered accommodation. So you'll come in here to have your food in the mornings or in the evenings. It's usually a really nice social space because you'll often come and sit with people from your halls to have breakfast and dinner. People also from off campus use it at lunch to just get some food. A lot of the lecturers use it. So, there's a good variation of food here. You can get hot food, you can also get things like sandwiches, cakes, and biscuits. So yeah, it's really convenient for people living on campus. So yeah, as you can see here, just in there, there's lots of different things you can get. Through here is the commuting line, which is new this year. It's got lots of facilities. So if you come in and you don't live on campus and you need someone to leave your bag, you can leave it there. There's also a kitchen facility, and sort of like a chill out facility where you can meet people. If you've got a few hours between your lectures, you can just come here to make a cup of tea, do some work, relax instead of having to sit in the library. So yeah, it just gives a nice open space for people that maybe have to stay at uni for a few hours, but don't have any lectures. There are also computers and things that we can use. Here we just have several sort of classroom lecture theatres, a lot of them are computer rooms. So if you're doing any maybe research methods modules, then you might come in here for your lectures. So yeah, and here we have lots of our physiology labs. So they're heat chambers, and you do testing like VO2 max testing, things like that. So if you're doing a course like sports science or physiology, then you might come in here for some of your practical seminars to learn how to use the equipment, like taking bloods, using the VO2 max equipment and things like that. Along here, we also have the washateria, whereas if you're living on campus, this is where you come to wash your clothes. Super easy to use, it's fairly cheap, and yet it's fairly central on campus, so no one will have to walk a long way to come and use the washateria.
Okay, so I mean, we've kind of got to the end of the campus tour now. So if anyone watching has any questions for the next 4 or 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there, as that was a live tour, so no one actually had any questions, but hopefully you guys do. What I will do as well is send around some links to some other campus tours that we did, which are a bit longer and they're in the sun, so they're a bit easier to watch. But now I'm really excited to introduce you some of our student ambassadors from various different courses across university who are here to answer your questions. So I'm going to give you all 2 or 3 minutes to type into the Q&A box any questions that you might have for our students. So this could be anything to do with the video tour that you've just seen, from the courses that I was talking about, from the student union, from student life to living in accommodation, anything essentially that one of our current students can answer for you. And then what I'll do is I'll get them to introduce themselves. Actually, guys, if you want to turn your cameras on now for me, and I'll stop sharing. Hello. Whilst we wait for some questions to come in, do you all want to go around and introduce yourselves and say what your name is and what you study?
Hi guys, I'm Jenny and I study history at St Mary's and I'm in my 3rd year.
Wonderful. Sean, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'm Sean. I'm currently in my 4th year at St Mary's and I'm doing a Masters in Physiology.
Wonderful. I'll let you choose who goes next, girls.
I'm Tanaz. I'm doing primary education and I'm in my 1st year.
Amazing.
I'm Lucilia. I'm in my 2nd year and I'm doing international business management.
Amazing. Right, I'm just having a look to see if any questions come in. We have 46 participants here, so I'll be really surprised if not one of you have any questions. I have some posed questions that I'm going to ask you guys anyway. Let me have a look at the chat as well. No questions so far. Okay, well, I'll ask you all a question to kick things off and hopefully get people thinking about questions. So my first one is, and I didn't prepare this for you, so I hope this is okay, but I want to know, what's the favorite thing so far about studying on your course? What's the most, like, what do you love the most about your course so far? Who wants to go first?
I will.
Yeah, go on, Jenny.
I did the same course as Meg, so we're very on it with this one. But I really loved the element of individual research and not necessarily being given everything that I need to do, like handed to me and saying you need to read this and this, but also going off and doing my own independent research and bringing that to seminars to talk about.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things as well. Like, I loved, in comparison to sixth form and college, like at university, you get to kind of think for yourself and go away and do your own research, which is really, really fun. How about anyone else?
So yeah, I think my favourite part of my course is, so we not only learn about the theory and everything behind physiology and how it changes, but we also get to put it into practice in the lab. So we normally have a lecture and then we go into the lab and put it into practice, or we design a program and then do it. So that's really nice for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I was doing like science-based stuff at college, when I came to university and saw the facilities that a university has on such a larger scale as well, that's really, really cool. So now, how about yourself?
For me, because I do primary education, it's nice to see that there's a lot more that goes into teaching than you see on the outside, and that there's lots more that goes into it, and it's interesting to see different ways and techniques of teaching children and how it affects their learning, which I didn't really think of when I first went into it, but now I'm seeing that teachers do go through a lot more than what you see that they put on.
Absolutely. Like, I love that all of you are drawing on like the kind of different theory and the actual learning of university. I expected you all to be like, oh, I love that I've met new friends and I get to go out with them all. That's great answers. I've actually got one specifically for you, Lucilia. If I said your name right, yes. So
Yes.
someone said, how are you finding studying business?
So my course is a very broad course. It's not like, business law or business and finance. It's not a very specific course. Mine is very broad. So with my course, I get to explore a lot of different elements. So I get to do a little bit of each. And in each module, I sort of learn every single part. So I always, even though I'm not doing a specific one, I do a little bit of business and finance, business and law. I do a lot of, just it all sort of makes sense and all sort of ties in. And I would say it's a really good course. And we've got a lot of good lecturers as well. They're very, they're very good and all of that stuff. And also with our course, we learn a lot of the secrets of business. Like, a lot of people see building a business can be really easy, especially when you hear like talks from I don't know, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They make it sound so easy, but it's not as easy as it seems. It's actually a very complex thing, and it's really nice knowing what goes into making such a big business. So it's a very interesting course.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, especially if you're doing straight business management, you get to do, as you said, a bit of everything, which is only going to help you if you do want to go into business, as you said. And we've got lots of people interested in business, actually. So before I come back to you, I'll ask another question. Someone's asked, why should they choose to go to St. Mary's? Does anyone want to go first?
I can go.
Yeah, go on.
So I'll say from my experience, actually, when I applied for universities, St. Mary's was one that my tutor told me to apply for, and I hadn't done any research on the course, I hadn't done any research on the place or anything, but I just applied for it. And then after I applied for it, I went to go and see the campus, and that was one of the main things that made me want to come to St. Mary's, because our campus is so beautiful, and the atmosphere and being there, and it also is a really small university compared to other universities that you might be seeing at the moment. So one of the main things for me was the atmosphere of the actual university being there, which I know is quite difficult now, but actually going on campus, walking around, seeing people, because it is really nice. Because obviously I did a foundation year, I went last year, so I got to see a little bit of it in a normal light, and it's just always really lively and you see so many new people. So yeah, that's my reason.
No, that's a great reason. I completely agree with the campus. I think when I was researching for universities, I went to the St Mary's website and saw an aerial image of the campus, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. But yeah, exactly what you said. Anyone else? One more person want to answer that question? Sean or Jenny?
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely the same as as like it is quite a small university. You get to know everyone. You'll always end up seeing people that it can be quite difficult to walk over to the library sometimes because you end up having 2-3 20-minute chats with different people. So you do have to find your time a bit more. But yeah, I definitely agree with Tanaz on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenny, you were going to say something, but you were on mute.
Yeah, still can't do Zoom. Uni hasn't helped me with that. But no, I really liked it because I really appreciate like the course that was offered. Like it was a really different course compared to other universities. I think when you're looking at what university to go to, like it's really important to like compare like things that are meant to be the same course. So what would be a straight history course at one university is very different to a straight history course at another university, depending on what the lecturers specialize in and what they offer. So that was something that really drew me to St Mary's because it was quite a contemporary look at history, which I really, really enjoyed. But also the campus is lovely and green, and it's like attached like an English heritage building, which is Strawberry Hill House, which is amazing to go and have a look around. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. One of my top tips for students is, if you're looking at different courses and you can't decide which one you might make your firm or insurance choice, have a look at the modules offered on each course, and kind of, as you said, identify what are you interested in, what do you actually want to study. And I picked St Mary's history for the same reason as you did, actually. So back to business, as we've got a couple of questions for you. So Lucia, what were you studying before you started your business course, and what are your aspirations for the future? Wow, quite the question.
Okay, to answer your question, so in sixth form, I did a few courses. I sort of changed a little bit, but I would say the main courses I studied was English literature. I did business. I did economics. So those, and I did IT as well. So those were like the main courses that I'd done. It was all really interesting. It definitely helped me to study business at uni. And my aspirations for the future is actually not to do anything in business. University was actually just a plan B, mainly because I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do in life. And I felt like business was definitely the course to do, because I feel like there's a lot that you can do with business. So to answer your question about my aspirations, is actually to work in film and stuff, which I do a lot of outside of university. If you know me personally, you will know that I'm a film freak a little bit.
Yeah, that's amazing. You make an amazing point there, because I remember having discussions with my parents, actually, funny enough, who were like, you can't do anything with a history degree, but what you've done there is you've pinpointed that regardless of whether you know what you want to go in or not, doing any degree, you'll gain transferable skills. So from you, for business management, you've gained all these skills that mean that you're going to be ahead of all the competitors in your field, because you've got a degree and you've shown that you studied all these various things and you have discipline to do that. So no, that's amazing. I love to hear that. That's incredible. Okay, how much coursework does business have, just while we're talking?
How much coursework does it have? It sort of depends on the modules that you pick. In first year, every single module will come with an assignment, so you'll have to do a coursework. And then for second year, it just depends on which one you do. Some modules might just be 2 exams, or some modules might just be a group presentation and coursework, or another module might be coursework and an exam. So it all depends on the modules. Can't give you an exact number, unfortunately.
No, you're right though. It really depends on the course, and especially at what university you go to as well. So yeah, and you're right, some modules will have exams, some won't. And university is good in that sense, because unless you're doing a specific accreditation, normally you can decide for yourself which modules you choose, and you can kind of make sure that, I think I avoided exams in my entire third year at university. So I think I did 1 exam out of 3 years purposely, and just chose modules that only did coursework. So university does offer that flexibility. What else? We've got another question. What makes St Mary's stand out? I think we've kind of answered that already, unless anyone has I don't know, Lucilia, if you have something, I didn't get you to answer that question initially. Is there anything about St Mary's that stands out for you?
I think it was mainly the campus. There's definitely what everyone else said. It was the atmosphere. I remember St Mary's wasn't actually in my top choices, and then in sixth form we actually came to the campus, and then my best friend who didn't go to sixth form with me was like, oh my god, I'm going St Mary's, and I was like, okay, I'll go St Mary's too. But it was mainly the campus. It's a really nice friendly campus. So,
yeah, no, for sure, completely agree with that. Someone's asked, what does the law course cover? I don't think we have any lawyers here, but the law course, in terms of what it covers, I can send a link into the chat in just a moment, which breaks down all the modules on that course. But you can expect in your first year for a law course to be very much laying the foundations of everything from criminal law to family law, basically getting a taste for most things that you would. But the best thing about university is that in your third year, if you want to specialize in corporate law, you can do that kind of thing. So you can cover most things on our LLB here, and then deciding basically on what you like, you can choose. We also do law with criminology as well, if you want to specialize specifically in criminology and have that on your degree when you graduate. But again, I can send more information on that if that's useful. Okay. What makes a business course offered at St Mary's stand out from other business courses offered at other universities? I will come back to you and ask Lucilia if you want to answer that. But I think, again, it will be based on, I mentioned earlier that we have about 5,000 students at St Mary's, which is smaller to most universities. I don't know if that's something that you noticed, Lucilia, that your classes weren't huge, but maybe slightly smaller than others might expect.
Yeah, my classes are definitely like much smaller. I remember when I went to visit Essex, there was a lot more people, and the lecture theatres are much bigger, I think, because they have more students on campus. Whereas in my course, I think altogether with all just business students from every single different field, I think there was only about 150 of us altogether. So
Wow.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of smaller numbers at our university.
For sure. Okay, the questions are slowing down, but I'm going to ask you one from my proposed list of questions. What is your favourite university event that you've attended? Like, so this could be from the SU or something your lecturers have put on, a field trip. I'll go first. When I was at St Mary's, I went to Venice with the history. I don't know if they still run that trip. That was personally my favourite event. I don't know about freshers. Any of you got any favourite events at all?
I think it's got to be Freshers, isn't it? It's iconic. Also, summer ball. The SU events are always like really great, like for the socials and everything. And also they run a bus to club service every Wednesday so that we can go to the local club at Viper, which is really great. And it's like a really safe way to like start clubbing and things, because like only people with a wristband from St Mary's can go, which means it's all like quite closed, so it's really safe. And obviously like you're getting transported from campus and then back to campus, which is really great, and the nights are always fun. There's always like a really great cheese room at Viper, which we all love.
Yeah, that's true. I do miss my uni days for that reason. My other question actually was, are you part of any clubs and societies or any sport clubs? Sean, you're part of a sport club, aren't you? Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I think one of the good things, especially when I first started, was I'm part of the running club or athletics club at St Mary's. And it's quite nice because we meet up pretty much every day. So we meet up 3 times a week for sessions and then the rest of the time for steady runs. So it's quite nice because we had people from all 3 years, 4 years at St Mary's. So you've instantly got friends from the first day, like that all have something in common. So it's really nice. You end up going to films with them. You end up like going on nights out with them. We even eat together. We all live together as well. So it's just really nice to sort of have that family feel from the start.
That's great. Is there any other societies or that you guys are involved with at all? Yeah.
So I was president of the university choir, which is one of the societies that we have here. I was president last year, which was really great to be involved with, and great again for like making friendships and things, and just like doing something that's like a lot of people love to do. I'm also part of the Catholic Society because we're one of 3 Catholic universities in the country. We are obviously accepting of all faiths, but it's a great like unique thing about St Mary's. And their Catholic Society is really brilliant and really active. I'm actually sat in chaplaincy right now.
That's cool. I've actually had a good question come in. So it says student accommodation isn't always great. Does St Mary's have a good choice of university halls? So just for context, I explained to students earlier that Most of our accommodation was on site, so they know that. Does anyone in here, did anyone live on campus? Sean, do you want to talk about your experience in accommodation for us?
So yeah, so they do have quite a good choice. It's quite varied. So you can live in shared rooms, you can live in your own room with an ensuite, or you just have your own room with like shared bathrooms. The shared bathroom isn't as bad as it sounds. You do have cleaners that go in every day, clean it. So it's not quite as grim as people think. Obviously with halls, it's not perfect. Like you are living with 22 other people or however many people your halls. So there's going to be some disagreements there. But you do learn to live with it, and you do all learn to get on. But most of the time it's not your home. It is your home, but it's like not home, as you would expect with like carpets and everything. But it is nice, and it does the job, and it just becomes your home eventually.
Yeah, once you leave all your stuff in,
Yeah.
it starts to feel like home. At St Mary's, as Sean said, you can have, so at St Mary's, our accommodation is catered. I didn't mention that in the first section of my presentation. So we cater all of our facilities. So in the kitchens, you'll see that there's more people in our halls than if you were sharing a kitchen where you'd be cooking, if that makes sense. So St Mary's has big kitchens and blocks for that kind of stuff, because in your rent, you get food in the ref, and that's done on the point system. Again, I can send information about that in the chat box. But yeah, you can live in DMAC, which is behind the track, which I showed. They have en suites, or you can live in, what is it, Clive S, that has like a cooker and a hob and stuff. So there's loads of variation, as Sean said, of accommodation. I don't know if anyone else wants to share their accommodation experience or commuting experience.
So I commute in. I haven't lived on campus. I live in South London. For me, I think for last year, I find it quite difficult being a commuter, because I used to literally just go to my lectures, finish my lectures, go home. But this year I started driving in, and I think it's nice because obviously I'm still at home, which I'm saving a bit of money on. But it's also nice because you have your uni environment, and then you have your home environment, which I like to differentiate. It is difficult sometimes when you want to go to the library and it's an hour journey, but it's good because for me, when I decide I'm going to go to the library, I get up early, leave early, have the whole day on campus, so I know, okay, I'm going to get all my work done today, and then I'll be able to go home. But yeah, it's nice, and I like doing it because I prefer being at home than I would be on campus. Yeah, it just depends on what you prefer.
Yeah, I think it's like really important when you're considering whether you go to university, like, do you want to live at home and save money? And that's absolutely okay if you want to do that. Or do you want to come onto campus and, as you said, maybe you can walk to the library in your pajamas? Or do you want to have that active kind of like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go? That's also a really good way of putting it. I never thought of that before. You know, I didn't live on campus in my first year either, but you know, I still made friends from going into halls and hanging out with people, obviously when it was safe to do so. But yeah, like you said, it really depends on how you learn best and how you know, socialize best. So yeah, everyone have different ways. So yeah, I think it's a really good answer. Did anyone else live in accommodation or commute? No? You guys just satellited and that's fine. Do we have any more questions? Someone's asked what the criminology course involves. I'm not sure on the specific modules myself, but again, I can send that information across to you. Again, like most degrees, it'll have the foundations in your first year, and then you specialize as you go forward. But in terms of actual topics, I don't know off the top of my head, so I shall find out for you. Is international business interesting? Lucilia, is that something that you've covered at all?
Yeah, it is very interesting. We get to do a lot of work on, well, we do more work on like specific countries, but it is really interesting. You learn a lot about how to build a business in another country and how business runs in a lot of countries, and the laws that you have to follow, the regulations. Because I think a lot of people do, like, everyone knows about business here in London, England, in the UK, because we see it all around us. But it is really interesting learning about business in other countries, because it's very different everywhere, and not all things are the same. So it's very, very complex, and it's really easy to learn. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Do we have any more questions? We have 4 more minutes for question taking, or I can come up with some more questions for you all. We've had a broad questions coming in though. What would be your top tip for students starting university this year or next year? What do you wish you had told yourself before joining university that you know now?
I'll go. The main one for me was to be a little bit more open. I was a bit scared coming to university because I'd always known someone going somewhere. So when I went to secondary, I already had a group of friends from primary who came to secondary with me, and even in sixth form, I stayed at my own sixth form, so I knew the teachers, I knew the students. So to come somewhere where I'd meet completely different people from all over the country, from all over the world, it was really frightening for me. And for my whole first year, so for my whole foundation year, I didn't really speak to anyone. But this year, I've forced myself to go out and speak to people, and I've made loads of new friends from that. And even being an ambassador as well, it's made me make a lot of different new friends from all over the country, from all over the world. So yeah, one of the main things would be just come out your comfort zone, try and be confident, and try and get to know as many people as you can.
That's great advice. Anyone else?
I'd also say budgeting, make sure that when you get your student loan through, make sure that you know what you can and can't spend when. It's great at St Mary's because you've got the safety net of the ref, you know that you've already paid for you to have 2 meals a day, so you're kind of fine. But if you want to do other stuff, you need money, so either get a job or budget properly.
Absolutely, budgeting is something that I wish I had learned for sure. I think I've only just learned how to budget as an adult, so definitely learn how to budget before you come to university. Have a look at saving accounts like Monzo is really good for telling you how much you've overspent in the week and stuff, so definitely check that stuff out. Anyone else want to go? Advice you'd give yourself before coming to university?
My advice would be always talk to your lecturers whenever you need help with anything. I know sometimes it's a bit hard because you're like, oh, I'm independent now, I don't need to go talk to my lecturers when I need help. No, do it. 100% do it, and try to do all your assignments on time. Even if you're out having so much fun, it will come back to you. So I know that's boring advice, but time to take it, definitely do that.
No, you're absolutely correct. I think I had friends who just decided not to go and see the lecturers for 3 years and wondered why they weren't improving. And, when you go to university, you have to remember that you're paying to go to university and you're paying for that advice. So absolutely go and see your lecturers. It's not about being independent. It's about, improving yourself. I've just had 5 questions come through and we have 1 minute left. So I'm just going to look at one to do. So again, they're for business. And again, I think I was going to send out some information about business. I think we've had a lot here, and maybe I can talk to Lucilia about getting some more information from a student's perspective, if that would be useful for you guys. Someone said, where is St Mary's located in London? So we're located in Twickenham, which is in the southwest of London. We're 30 minutes by train from Twickenham to London Waterloo. So you have the leafy suburbs of London, but also the city right on your doorstep. So there's something for everyone where we are located. And finally, do you have any tips about selecting the right course? And I think that Jenny covered that when she said, make sure you're checking the modules. So find the course that you're interested in applying to, but have a look at the specific things on the courses, what works best for you, because not every course is the same. And also look at the league tables, but don't just look at one, look at multiple and see how happy students are at that university. But that was fantastic. Thank you so much all for all your wonderful advice for our students. We're actually now going to take a 5-minute break, everyone, and then I'm going to introduce you to 2 of our academics. But for the time being, thank you so much for joining us today, student ambassadors. And I'll be in touch if I have any further questions for you all. So
Hi everyone. I'm Dr. Kim Salmons, and I am the course lead for the Liberal Arts degree at St Mary's University. I have a couple of other roles as well, but the hat I'm wearing today is really to talk to you about the humanities and about the liberal arts. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, here we go. So here we go. So humanities at St Mary's University. This is me, and I'll give you my email address so you can contact me if you want to. So what are the humanities? Well, the humanities tend to span a number of different subjects, but the subjects at St Mary's University that we kind of call humanities subjects includes English literature, history, creative and professional writing, and the liberal arts. And you're probably going to ask me, what are the liberal arts? And I'm going to come to that a little bit later. So there's a lot in the, oh, sorry, that's my phone talking to me. There's a lot of stuff in the newspapers and all about sort of saying, you know, what is a humanities degree worth? And I hope that by the end of this talk, I would have convinced you that, in fact, a humanities degree is worth a lot. I'm a humanities graduate myself. I did my English literature degree at St Mary's University, believe it or not. And I went off and did my master's degree at Royal Holloway University. And then I came back to St Mary's and I did my PhD there in English literature, and I've never left. So, and I think Meg's probably a similar case to me, that she's never left either. It's one of those places where it's such a great community feel, and you know, we have such great relationships with our students that we just you know, and as a student you have such a good relationship that with your lecturers that you just stay, you never leave. So the humanities, I came from a background in journalism, but I wanted to do a degree, so I did a degree later as a mature student, and the humanities has done me very well. It's given me a number of skills which I will go through. It gives you the skills that you need really for understanding yourself, understanding the world. It gives you creative skills, whether you're moving into, maybe you want to be a business person, then, you know, having the skills that enable you to be a critical thinker, to really look at the world and not just take it at face value, but instead, you know, question what you're being told and know how to question something as well, know how to articulate what you want to say. I think the humanities is very much kind of underrated in how it's applicable to every aspect of our lives. And certainly at St Mary's University, you know, we're trying very hard to kind of bring, sorry, it's my phone, bring how the humanities fits into possibly other aspects such as business, or into the subjects that you might be interested in doing. So to start with English literature then, our programme isn't just about looking at sort of, you know, all those classic novels that you've probably heard of, probably written by traditional white male writers. Our new programme lead, Dr. Sarah Burdett, is bringing in a really kind of diverse and very different kind of programme, which we've been working on over the past year or so. And that's looking at modules on sexuality, on gender, on Black culture and literary history. And it's a course that's really evolving and changing to really reflect the contemporary issues that are relevant to all of our lives. And you know, we very much work on the basis at St Mary's that we're listening to the students. We want to know what you're interested in, and we want to know how we can develop our courses to make them relevant to you as individuals. So, you know, we're constantly in that state of always wanting to know how we should be evolving. Ooh, let's see if I can change my slide. So we have, at the moment, we've got modules such as gender and fiction. We've got 20th century new voices, which I teach. And we're looking at the moment at Angela Carter, who's sort of rewritten fairy tales in quite a kind of Gothic reinvention. We're looking at James Baldwin, a gay Black American writer who looked at all kinds of kind of quite difficult subjects in the 1950s. Contemporary fiction, so really looking at novels that are right up to date. The special study, students get an opportunity to perhaps choose what they would like to study. So when you get to level 6, which is the 3rd year, you can think, you know, well, actually, I really enjoyed looking at this particular writer. I'd like to do a special study on them. So, as I say, we're really trying to kind of develop and really tap into what students are asking for. English literature is really good for preparing you for aspects of the workplace. It's about, you can also, so on the English literature program, you can also take workplace learning modules that will help you to prepare for working life. We have one module which looks at psychometric testing, which identifies your strengths. It's looking at organisational culture and ethics in the workplace. And you can also take a placement. So you can go and find out what it's like to work perhaps in a local publisher's or a different place of work, whatever you're interested in, we will try and help you get that placement. So creative and impressional writing is another aspect of our humanities degrees. And this is, I mean, creative and professional writing it has a wonderful community. And one of the great things that they do, unfortunately not at the moment because of COVID, but we would, and I've read out some of my stories, they're very welcoming, but meet down the pub and all share stories, our readings, our writings, and there's no judgment, there's no kind of way of saying this is how you should be writing. It's about being creative, it's about finding what your strength is and really developing a lovely writing community. And actually the creative and professional writing course has been very successful. A number of students have gone on to do the MA Creative Writing first novel and they've become published writers themselves. So it's quite well known around the country, and certainly if you're interested in writing or becoming a writer, then that's an aspiration for you. History is another one of our humanities courses run by Dr. Stuart McCain, and part of this course includes a really global scope, as you can see here on the PowerPoint, looking around Europe, North America, Middle East, Africa and Australia. But it starts from the medieval period right up to the present day. One of our lecturers, Professor Glenn Richardson, is an expert in the Tudors, and he's been doing some work with Hampton Court recently. As you can see, the seminars are taught in they're not large lectures. There was a question earlier on about sort of how many students are in lectures and seminars, and St Mary's really prides itself on running very, well, the humanities especially, in very kind of personal and you know, close, small seminar groups where students and lecturers really get to know each other, and you know, you can really flourish as an individual. We also try not to have too many exams in our humanities subjects, so most of them will be reflective pieces, writing, essays. They might be debates, they could be presentations. So we're also mindful that, you know, we want to make sure that we're setting up assessments that are useful for students, that will develop you and into the world of work. Our newest programme is the Liberal Arts, and the Liberal Arts degree can be taken as a 2-year degree, so you can finish your degree in 2 years. Or you can do it as a 3-year traditional. And this brings together all of our humanities subjects, but it also adds in some politics, some theology, film and screen media. And this year we're adding on a business innovation pathway. Many people who are interested in the arts also need to have that kind of business acumen, you know, marketing skills perhaps, or entrepreneurship. If you're interested in setting up your own business, but it's a creative business, you still need to know how to run it as a business. And we're very aware of that. So I run the Liberal Arts degree. and as I say, it's very new. We're going to be running our first summer school in June and July this year, which is an intensive 6-week course. And but it means that instead of doing your normal 3 years in the degree, you can finish in 2 years and then go on to perhaps do a master's or go on to whatever you're hoping to do in your job. So employability with the humanities, as I've said, I think it's very underrated. The humanities is underrated as subjects that will really enable you to fit into various different jobs, not just jobs that are sort of focused in publishing or journalism, which of course, if you want to go into journalism or publishing, then certainly a humanities degree will help you with that. But it's not, as I say here, it's not a degree that prepares you for one job. It's a degree that equips you with the skills that you need for most jobs. And whether that's through reading, through writing, through articulation, through communication, through being able to convince somebody through a thought out and validated argument. So St Mary's University, it's a beautiful campus, and the campus is really the backdrop to some of our humanities subjects. It's a very old building, partly built by Horace Walpole at Strawberry Hill campus. So we try and use the campus to kind of inform our teaching and to inform some of the things that we teach. As I said, we have small seminar groups, we have individual personal tuition, and I think one of the best things is that we know, you know your lecturers and we know you. You're not just a reg number for us. We know who you are, we're interested in you, we're there to support you, and we're there to make sure that you absolutely have the best experience and get the best degree that you can. We operate an open door policy when we're on campus and a virtual open door policy when we're not on campus. But you know, the key thing for us is that you get what you need from your degree. And I can say that I personally didn't see myself moving into academia when I went to do my English literature degree at St Mary's University, but it opened up doors to me. You know, I had lecturers who cared about me and knew me personally, and persuaded, or didn't persuade me, they encouraged me to go into what they thought was a job that I would enjoy and that I would be hopefully good at. So I hope I am good at it. But yes, so anyway, well, if you come to St Mary's, you will be able to find out. So thank you very much for listening to that, and please do let me know if you've got any questions. I'm going to escape now.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kim. We haven't had any questions come in so far, so everyone watching, if you do have any questions for Alex or Kim, please do make sure you put them in the question box for us. But now it's my absolute pleasure to hand over to Alex.
It's your pleasure so far, Meg. I'll try and do a good job and see. So yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, so I'm the Programme Director for the Strength and Conditioning Science degree here at St Mary's. But I teach across a number of different programmes. I also teach across sports science, I do a bit of teaching on sports coaching. So I feel like I'm in quite a good position to be able to give you a broad overview of the different types of programmes we have at St Mary's. So yeah, just like him, I'm just going to share my screen for you. So just give me 2 seconds. Okay, now Kim's touched upon this quite nicely actually, and I hope we don't kind of cross over too much, but we're very lucky where we're based up in Twickenham to have such a beautiful campus. And if you're interested in sport and exercise and fitness and health and things, you know, in terms of being based in London, you're not going to get much better than the St Mary's campus. You know, so this is the campus itself. We're very lucky to have a lovely running track. We've got a really nice rugby pitch just outside our offices. So this building down here, right at the bottom of your screen, if you can't see my cursor, is where the main kind of gym is based. And then over here in the centre of the campus is where the university kind of sports science labs are. But as you can see, it's a lovely, lovely space. And if you're interested in sport and exercise, we're in a brilliant place locally. Now, I'm actually probably slightly different to Kim in that I didn't study at St Mary's to start with. I studied at another university and did sport and exercise science as an undergraduate student. And then I went on to do physiology as a master's degree, and then kind of carried on into strength and conditioning as a PhD, and hopefully beginning my PhD a bit later this year. So I've got quite a good background in sports science, but I thought I'd mention that because when I left my previous job, I wanted to go and teach, and I wanted to go and teach strength and conditioning somewhere in the UK that had a good reputation for strength and conditioning and sports science. And really, nationally, St Mary's has an excellent reputation for sports science and for strength and conditioning. So I'm going to talk about those degree pathways now. So sport and exercise science. Now, it's important. This year, actually, the degree program name has changed very slightly. So it was originally sports science, but we've changed it to sport and exercise science because it's the application of scientific principles to sport can also be applied to exercise and to health and to kind of the wider population outside of just an athlete cohort. So whenever I do these open days, I always think, the name science often scares off a lot of our students. Most people, including myself, I'll be honest, when I was an 18-year-old, longer ago than I care to remember now. But when I got into sports science, I got into it because I liked sport, not necessarily because I liked science. Now, if you like science already, then brilliant, because it is a science degree, and all of the degrees I'm going to talk about today have got a science element to them, so they're all BSc degrees. So if you're just interested in sport and not interested in science, don't worry. The first year of a lot of these programs that I'm going to talk about are geared towards students like you, where we make it quite practical to start with and then slowly introduce the science element as we go through. So sport and exercise science as a discipline is underpinned by three key areas. So you have psychology, which most people know what that is. So obviously study of the brain and the mind and social interaction, that sort of thing. Physiology, essentially kind of how the body works. And then biomechanics, which is probably maybe the term that you haven't come across, which is more the kind of mathematical and scientific principles that underpin movement. And therefore, from a sport and exercise perspective, can we explain and understand things like forces and joint angles and all that sort of stuff? And then strength and conditioning actually probably isn't technically a sport and exercise science. It's kind of a hybrid of all of these different things, really. So I tried to, when I was putting this slide together, I thought, okay, most of the questions I get at open days are, is it going to be really sciencey? Is there going to be lots of maths involved? How much practical time am I going to spend on the degree? So out of the degree programs that I'm going to talk about today, so we have all of these different degree programs, strength and conditioning, I would argue, is quite broad. Okay, so it's quite broad. There is some kind of science and maths focus, particularly around things like training program design, so calculating the weights and things that people might be lifting, calculating distances run and all that sort of stuff. But there's also a very applied coaching element to it. So along this continuum, I would say most of our degree programs span, not only kind of the scientific side, but also some of the coaching side as well. But a degree like sports coaching, which I'll talk about, is more heavily weighted to that kind of applied coaching focus. So is psychology, but then biomechanics is obviously a little bit further down that science end of the spectrum. So we're very lucky at St Mary's to have amazing facilities on the campus. We have a number of different laboratories, from biomechanics laboratories where we can study using high-speed cameras, or we can look at kind of forces generated by force platforms and these sorts of things, and investigate human movement. We can do things in physiology laboratories by things like looking at saliva measures, looking at blood measures, looking at oxygen uptake measures, and trying to explain and understand performance from that point of view. So that could be performance in football, could be performance in rugby, could be long distance running, whatever sport you're kind of interested in. Most of the time there'll be some element of sports science that underpins performance there. So the sport and exercise science degree itself, like I'm not going to spend too long on these slides because most of this information is available on the website. But the way that the degree program works is that sport and exercise science is all of biomechanics, physiology, and psychology. So you will study all of those different aspects of sports science initially in the degree, and you get a nice broad overview of what sport and exercise science is. And then obviously as you go through the degree, you can start to specialize. So say, for example, if you look at the modules here, you have a module on biomechanics, you have one on kind of anatomy, one on psychology, one on physiology. And what might happen is you go, oh, Alex, I loved the physiology module this year. I want to study a bit more of that as I go through the degree. And then your module choices will become optional and you can start to specialize in a particular area. So most people will start off saying nice and broad and then pick whatever they're interested in and kind of gear their modules around their areas of specialism or areas of interest. So sports coaching, and again, what I would say is with all of these degrees, there's quite a lot of crossover. So for example, the program that I run, which I'll talk about in a few slides time, we have sports coaching students on our program, we have sport and exercise science students on our program. So, you know, we share modules with a range of different degrees. But sports coaching has kind of three key aspects to it. So if you go back to that kind of continuum I put forward, sports coaching is obviously much more on the applied end of the spectrum. There's three main things that you'll study if you study sports coaching. It'll be the coaching process, so actually how you coach individuals, how you coach athletes. Skill acquisition, which is essentially how do people learn and how do people acquire new skills? How do we actually teach or coach in a way that is most effective to bring about enhanced skill learning? And then performance analysis, which actually is quite similar to some biomechanics that you'll learn. So, you know, looking at video footage of matches or video footage of races and trying to understand, okay, what underpins performance there. And again, you can see there's a few kind of core modules that you share with some of the sports sciences, so physiology, biomechanics, but you'll also learn things around the coaching process and skill acquisition as well. Sports psychology is a newer degree program for us. So for those of you that are perhaps, that I'll be honest, this isn't my background. Like my background is as a physiologist, so I'm interested in kind of blood and bones and muscle and things like that. That's what gets me excited. But psychology is really, really popular at St Mary's, and we do it very, very well. I'll come on to kind of who leads those programs in a second, but obviously psychology is more the understanding of why athletes train, you know, what is it about their psychological processes that allow for elite performance, you know, what is it that motivates people, you know, how do we deal with issues around low confidence, low self-esteem, and how do we as sports scientists or sports psychologists help people achieve their goals. And again, the structure through this program is very similar, where you have a few kind of core modules at the start, and then you can choose and specialize as you go through. So these are my three amazing colleagues that run these programs. Again, I'm probably going to be sharing these slides with Meg. So if you want to get in touch with any of those particular programs, I would encourage you to obviously have a look on the website first. There are open days and things coming up. Or you can directly contact the program director if you had a specific question. All are very open, lovely people, and we'll get back to you as soon as they can. Obviously, it would be a shame if you had the strength and conditioning science program director on, and you know, I want to do a bit of a plug for my program, obviously. So yeah, this is me. I've been the program director for a couple of years, and strength and conditioning science at St Mary's is it's all to do with the physical preparation of athletes, really. So we're very lucky, again, in terms of facilities. I think you've done a facilities tour already earlier, so you might have come across what we call the PEC, or the Performance Education Centre. In my opinion, you know, obviously I'm biased, but I think this is one of the best, if not the best, teaching facility in the country for developing and training athletes. You know, we're very lucky to have this space as essentially just a huge kind of warehouse gym, but it's really nicely decked out with all the latest and kind of greatest equipment for strength and conditioning training. So as I say, if you're not entirely sure what strength and conditioning is, it is a science. So it's about using scientific principles, so physiology, biomechanics, some psychology and skill acquisition, to underpin and deliver impactful performance for support for athletes. So if we've got a professional football player, we're getting tasked to stop them getting injured or to make them faster, stronger, score more goals, whatever. Then our job is to think about ways that we can train them effectively and use the science that we learn to make sure that the support we're giving is robust and rigorous. So in terms of career path through strength and conditioning, again, like it's a common question that I get, and understandably so. Now, if I do a strength and conditioning degree, and this would apply for sports science as well, you know, what am I going to be able to do when I graduate? You know, what could a sports scientist do? But obviously, you can work in sport and you can work in exercise. But a lot of our graduates actually, you know, most of them will stay in the industry, but the transferable skills that you'll pick up as part of the degree program can go into a range of different industries. So, you know, as an example, last year I had a student who went and worked as a financier in the city because they'd learned really good kind of number handling skills on the degree. So they're very good with spreadsheets and that sort of thing, and had an interest in business. So they decided to go down that route. A lot of our student graduates will go and work in the school sector, so working in strength and conditioning support for school children, or they'll go in and work as kind of exercise specialists for school children. Some will go and work in the public sector through things like the police or the army. There's a big growth area there at the moment for sport specialists or exercise specialists, people that understand, you know, you could think of the army, for example, people that understand psychology, exercise psychology can help, maybe not from like the clinical side of things, but can help with kind of motivation to train. We have people that go in and look at things like, you know, the army get exposed to extreme heat, extreme altitude, where they get deployed, and how do the guys' physiology change as they go and experience those types of environments. So there's a range of different industries that our graduates go into. We're very fortunate, again, because of our links in the area, that most of our students will get good opportunities to go out and experience the world of work from a sports science or, you know, sports psychology perspective before they actually graduate. So just purely from the S&C program, we put this together last year. This was our mission statement for what we wanted all students to be able to say that they have received as part of their program. So if you come and study strength and conditioning, and this would apply for sports science as well, or any of the programs I've talked about today, our degree is essentially there to provide a high quality learning experience for you. Kim's talked nicely about, you know, being some of the other transferable skills that are important. So being a critical thinker, being an independent thinker, being able to question and challenge in a robust, kind of rigorous and well-informed way. But we also want to develop knowledgeable, effective coaches and make sure that you're highly employable by the time you graduate. So how do we actually, you know, go about doing that? Now, again, at St Mary's, you know, I can't speak for lots of other degree programs across the country because I've only been involved in a few in my time, but certainly one of the real strengths of our program staff at St Mary's is that we've got a really broad range of experiences and skills. So essentially kind of whatever sport you're probably interested in, unless it's something, you know, kind of down the tiddlywinks end of the spectrum, the likelihood is that somebody in our team will have actually got some experience of working in that field, so we'll be able to liaise with you there. We're very lucky on our degree program, I say, based on where we're based on our reputation, to be able to put students into a range of different vocational placement opportunities as part of your 3 years on each of these programs. So all of the programs I've talked about are 3-year studies. Sorry, it's gone past one there. This is just the module layout for strength and conditioning. Again, starts off very practical in the first year. If you're interested in lifting weights, running around, getting hot and sweaty, that's you know, that's a lot of what the practical element of the S&C degree is in the first place, and then we sneak some science in as you go through the degree program. Okay, there's more information there, so I'll probably stop there for time and I can just answer any questions that come in, but thanks for listening.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. It was so good to see 2 very broad overviews of both like different institutes and faculties at St Mary's, which was excellent.